Um, in 2026, the price of natural gas spiked so high and honestly so fast that it essentially triggered this self-destruct sequence for the entire global energy industry.
Yeah, it really did. And that is not an exaggeration, by the way.
No,
Yeah.
not at
Yeah.
all. It's like a terrifying masterclass in how this explosive historic price surge can actually become the exact mechanical trigger for a massive, prolonged market crash.
Right.
So welcome to the Deep Dives. Today we have a really fascinating stack of material in front of us. It's a highly classified senior leadership briefing from April 2026, and it's titled The Iran War Energy Shock.
Yeah, and this document is just, I mean, it's an incredibly granular forensic accounting of the disruption.
Oh, for sure.
Like the unprecedented disruption in the global oil and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, markets following the geopolitical shockwaves of early 2026.
Right, and because this briefing details a highly volatile event, specifically, the February 2026 U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, we should probably state right up front that our job today isn't to dissect the politics.
Exactly. We're not debating foreign policy or picking sides here.
No, absolutely not. We are treating this strictly as an autopsy of the global energy markets. We're just relying on the hard data in the source material provided.
Yeah, we just want to understand the physics of what happens when a critical commodity simply stops moving.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this, because the mechanics detailed in this report are pretty much historic.
Right. Oh, totally. I mean, we are looking at a total inversion of how we normally expect supply and demand to behave.
Yeah, the thesis here is just a total paradox. So we're going to cover three connected phases today for you all listening. First, we've got the short-term shock that basically sent LNG prices to the moon.
Right.
Second, the reality of what the analysts call demand destruction. And finally, we'll look at the project scorecard, right, to see who actually survives the resulting price crash over the next couple of decades.
Yeah, and to really understand that long-term crash, the baseline is the short-term shock.
Right, early 2026.
Exactly. The conflict initiates, and within just a matter of days, the Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed.
Which, I mean, for anyone tracking global logistics, that is just the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Absolute nightmare.
You instantly take 20 million barrels of crude oil offline. But I think more critically for the future of global power grids, you block roughly 20% of the entire global LNG trade.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is the contrast between how the oil market and the LNG market absorbed this blow.
Because they reacted very differently, right?
Totally. I mean, Brent crude oil certainly surged. It went from around $65 a barrel to $120 a barrel.
Which is a severe hit.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But the LNG market suffered what the report calls a structural fracture.
Wow.
And the reason comes down to the extreme physical concentration of export capacity, specifically located in Qatar.
Right. So the briefing flags March 18th as this pivotal moment. There were military strikes on Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city. And the report specifically mentions damage to trains 4 and 6. And for you listening, if you're picturing locomotives right now.
Yeah, it's not Thomas the Tank Engine.
Right. We should probably clarify what a train actually is in this context.
So in the LNG world, a train is a massive multi-billion-dollar industrial liquefaction and purification facility.
Okay.
See, natural gas is extracted from the earth as a vapor, and to put it on a ship, you have to run it through these trains to strip out the impurities, right? And then you supercool the gas to minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit.
Minus 260. That's just wild.
Right. And that extreme temperature is what turns the vapor into a liquid, which shrinks its volume by a factor of 600.
Okay, so taking out trains 4 and 6 isn't just like breaking a pipe somewhere.
No. You are crippling a highly specialized cryogenic megastructure.
Wow.
That's precisely the issue. Those strikes physically damage 17% of Qatar's total LNG production capacity.
17%.
Yeah, that equates to 12.8 million tons per annum that is just permanently removed from the global market.
That number is huge.
To put that scale into perspective, that is the equivalent of wiping the entire country of Algeria's LNG output off the map.
In a single afternoon.
In one afternoon.
Yeah.
And the engineering assessments estimate the repairs will take 3 to 5 years.
That's just unbelievable. And obviously the market reaction is incredibly violent.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Asian LNG price benchmark, which is known as JKM, was sitting at a completely normal, $10 per MMB2 before the war.
Right. And MMB2, for those wondering, that stands for million British thermal units. It's basically just the standard global metric for measuring heat energy.
Exactly. So by April, that price skyrocketed from $10 to a peak of $25.40.
Yeah, nearly triple.
Yeah, and the reason this spike is so much more aggressive than the oil spike is just the total lack of elasticity in the infrastructure.
Right, because the oil market has built-in shock absorbers.
Right.
You know, if a major pipeline goes down, you can ramp up production in a different hemisphere. Or you reroute tanker ships, tap into strategic petroleum reserves.
But LNG is incredibly rigid.
Very.
Like, you can't just mandate a regular factory to start supercooling gas to minus 260 degrees overnight.
Oh, exactly.
It's like losing a massive custom-built semiconductor fabrication plant. You can't just walk into a car factory and ask them to start printing microscopic silicon chips to make up the difference.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. The global spare cryogenic capacity is effectively zero. The supply is simply gone.
And so that absolute rigidity is the sole driver pushing the price up to 25.40.
Yeah. But here we hit the critical inflection point of the entire briefing.
Yeah.
When the price of a foundational energy source triples overnight, the buyers at the end of the line don't just, absorb the cost and carry on.
Right.
The system breaks.
Which brings us to the second phase, right? Demand destruction and what the analysts are calling the LNG skip.
Yes.
So the price is hovering between $21 and $25 per MMB2, and the report focuses heavily on emerging markets in South and Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm. Places like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Thailand, the Philippines.
Right. And at $25, they simply cannot afford the fuel.
No.
They are entirely priced out of the spot market.
And we really need to highlight the distinction between the spot market and long-term contracts here because it's vital.
Right. Break that down for us.
Well, a long-term contract is like a fixed-rate mortgage. You agree to buy a certain amount of gas every month for 20 years at a predictable price.
Okay, that makes sense.
But many of these rapidly growing nations, they couldn't secure those contracts, so they relied on the spot market.
Which is more like having an adjustable rate mortgage.
Exactly. You buy the gas off a ship right now at whatever today's price happens to be. So when the rate tripled, their national energy budgets basically defaulted.
Wow. And this presents a massive existential crisis for the producers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because the entire global LNG industry had essentially modeled its future growth on those specific Asian markets.
Yeah, they had. For years, the prevailing industry narrative was that LNG is the indispensable bridge fuel.
Right, the whole bridge fuel pitch.
Yeah.
Like, move your developing economy off dirty coal, use cleaner burning natural gas as a bridge, and eventually, transition to renewables in a few decades.
Right. And that $25 price spike completely incinerated the bridge fuel narrative.
Just burned it to the ground.
Totally. The demand destruction the report outlines isn't temporary. It is categorized as largely irreversible.
Wait, really? Irreversible?
Yeah. These nations suffered such a profound economic shock. They were facing severe industrial shutdowns because they couldn't afford power, that they actively revised their sovereign energy strategies.
To bypass LNG entirely.
Yes, they did the LNG skip.
But wait, let me push back on the mechanics of that timeline for a second. You can't just snap your fingers and build a nuclear reactor or a massive offshore wind farm just because gas had a bad month, right?
No, of course not.
Like, permitting and building a new domestic power grid takes a decade.
Yeah.
What are these countries doing for power today while they wait for these brand new blueprints to materialize? Do they just endure rolling blackouts for 5 years?
Well, it's a brutal transition, and they manage it through severe immediate triage.
Okay.
In the short term, yeah, they do suffer rolling blackouts. They forcibly throttle back their manufacturing sectors. But more importantly, they fire up every old coal plant they can find.
Oh, wow. So they go backwards.
Right. The briefing shows this stark short-term spike where coal demand actually rises by 2 to 5 exajoules in the late 2020s.
Wow.
It's just countries desperately substituting for the lost LNG just to keep the lights on.
That is a completely dirty fallback option out of pure survival. And just for context, an exajoule is a massive metric.
Oh, it's huge.
Like, to give you a sense of scale, 1 exajoule is roughly the entire electricity consumption of a country like the Netherlands for a full year.
Exactly.
Now, a 5 exajoule bump in coal is just a colossal amount of carbon being pumped out.
It is. But the thing is, it is strictly a stopgap measure.
Right.
Once these governments realized their domestic power grids could be held hostage by a geopolitical choke point in the Middle East, Their long-term calculus changed forever.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, because once you commit the capital to build a massive solar array or a new nuclear facility, you don't tear it down 3 years later just because LNG happens to get cheap again.
Right.
You have structurally removed that demand from the gas market, period.
And the numbers modeled in scenario A of the brief illustrate this perfectly. Even assuming the immediate war resolves relatively quickly, by the year 2050, the conflict permanently reduces global natural gas and LNG demand by 17 exajoules against pre-war baselines.
Yeah, 17 exajoules.
So that's 17 Netherlands worth of annual power demand that just simply vanishes from the ledger.
And the beneficiaries of this LNG skip are incredibly clear in the data.
Mm-hmm.
While coal gets that temporary bump, it faces an accelerated long-term decline. The true replacements here are renewables. Wind and solar are projected to run 12 to 24 exajoules above the baseline by 2040 and 2050.
So Southeast Asian nations are basically leapfrogging gas straight to solar and wind.
Exactly.
While over in Europe, you've got governments passing these aggressive mandated energy independence laws so they never face a winter heating squeeze again.
Right. And we also see nuclear energy gaining serious ground. It accelerates by about 3 to 5 exajoules above the baseline.
So the shock fundamentally rearranges how the world plans its future baseload generation.
It really does.
Which sets up the supreme irony of this entire timeline.
Oh, yeah.
We have this permanent structural shrinking of demand. The bridge is burned, but the producers didn't know the bridge was going to burn 3 years ago.
No, they have no idea.
So just as the buyers are walking away, the global LNG industry is preparing to unleash the largest wave of new supply in its history.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the timing is just catastrophic for the suppliers.
Yeah.
Between 2025 and 2030, 345 billion cubic meters per year of new LNG export capacity is coming online.
That is a staggering number.
It is. These are massive infrastructure projects that were fully funded, they were permitted, and they were under construction long before the winter started.
Right. And the report says that by 2028, global production capacity will hit 666 million tons per annum.
Yep.
And if you compare that to the International Energy Agency's own baseline projections, they estimated that total global LNG demand in the year 2050 would only be around 354 million tons.
Exactly. So the incoming capacity wave exceeds the mid-century demand projections by a massive 88%.
88% oversupply.
It is the most severe structural oversupply event the industry has ever faced.
You literally have an ocean of new gas hitting a market where all the new customers just went out and bought solar panels.
Pretty much.
So obviously that $25 price point just evaporates. What does the bottom look like then?
Well, utilization rates at these multi-billion-dollar facilities will plummet to around 62%. And with suppliers desperate to offload cargo to a shrinking pool of buyers, the report forecasts the Asian JKM price will crash to a trough of $7.54 per MMBtu by 2031.
2.54.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a bloodbath for the producers.
Absolute bloodbath.
But wait, what actually stops the price from dropping to like $3 or $0? Is there a physical floor to this crash?
Yeah, there is a floor, and it is governed by what analysts call the coal floor mechanism.
Okay, how does that work?
It ties directly back to those power plants we mentioned earlier. Seaborne coal pricing usually hovers around $4 to $4.50. Factoring in thermal efficiency, when the price of LNG falls to within $1 or $2 of coal, so roughly the $6 to $6.50 range dual-fuel power generators step in.
Okay, so these are power plants that have the physical hardware to switch between burning coal or burning gas, just depending on the daily economics.
Correct. When gas gets that cheap, these utilities look at the math and immediately switch from coal back to LNG.
Ah, I see.
And that sudden, massive burst of opportunistic buying acts as a parachute. It arrests the free fall, creating a hard demand floor right around that 7.54 mark.
Okay, so it catches the falling knife, basically.
Yeah.
But it catches it at a price point that is deeply unprofitable for a lot of companies.
Deeply.
Which leads us to the final phase, the project scorecard.
Yeah, the winners and losers.
Right. Applying this math to the actual players on the board. So let's look at the losers first.
The heaviest casualties are definitely the late entrants. These are the mega projects scheduled to deliver their first commercial gas between 2029 and 2031.
Right into the teeth of the crash.
Exactly. They are launching their ships directly into the deepest part of the oversupply trough.
And the briefing names several projects specifically, right?
It does.
You have U.S. developments like Lake Charles, carrying a break-even price of $9.50, and Alaska LNG with a staggering break-even of $10.80.
Yeah.
So if the global market is mathematically capped at 7.54, those projects are entirely unviable.
They're dead in the water. Even projects that received their final investment decisions and are actively producing, they face this devastating mechanism called cargo cancellations.
Which the financial mechanics of a cancellation are just fascinating to me.
Yeah, walk us through it.
So a U.S. producer buys raw gas from the domestic market, which is tied to the U.S. benchmark known as the Henry Hub.
Right.
They pay to run it through the liquefaction train. They pay to load it on a specialized vessel and ship it across the Pacific to sell at the Asian JKM price.
But the briefing models that by 2031, the price difference, the spread between the U.S. Henry Hub and the Asian JKM, narrows to a mere $2.55.
Right. And 2.55 isn't remotely enough to cover the variable costs of chartering the ship, burning fuel across the ocean, and then paying a facility in Asia to turn the liquid back into a vapor.
Not at all.
You are losing millions of dollars every time a ship leaves the dock.
Exactly. So your only logical business decision is to cancel the voyage, pay a contractual penalty, and literally leave the gas in the ground.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
And beyond the U.S. latecomers, the report categorizes Russia as a major loser too, right?
Yeah. Projects like Arctic LNG too, they might look economically viable on a pure spreadsheet,
Sure.
but they are crippled by international trade embargoes and financial blacklists, forced to rely on an inefficient shadow fleet of tankers. Their actual operating economics become completely irrelevant in a flooded market.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that clears the board of the late arrivals in the embargoed states. Who actually survives and wins in an environment where gas is trading at $7?
Well, the definitive winners are the early entrants, specifically the U.S. producers who beat the supply wave, projects that finalize construction and launch before 2028.
Right. So facilities like Plaquemines or Corpus Christi Stage 3.
Exactly.
Because they were built earlier, their capital costs are lower,
Yeah.
giving them break-even points around 6.50 to 6.80. So they capture the insane windfall profits during the $25 crisis era. And because their operational costs are below the 7.54 floor, they can comfortably survive the trough.
Yeah, and plus, they offer buyers something completely intangible, which is peace of mind.
Right.
The geopolitical premium. Buyers in Japan or South Korea look at the U.S. Gulf Coast and see a supply chain completely free of Middle Eastern choke points.
That's huge. And the briefing notes that Canadian and African projects, like those in Mozambique, they also gain this security diversification premium.
Yep. Buyers will willingly pay slightly above market rate just to guarantee their ships don't have to navigate a war zone.
Which brings us to, I think, the most complex entity in the global market, Qatar.
Yeah.
The former undisputed king of LNG. They took the physical damage from the initial strike, so how do they navigate the resulting crash?
Well, Qatar faces what the technical assessment calls a three-front resource problem.
Okay.
And it is crucial to understand that Qatar's constraint is not capital. They have virtually unlimited funds.
Right.
Their constraint is global engineering bandwidth.
Okay, break that down.
They need to execute 3 colossal engineering feats simultaneously. Front 1, repair the catastrophic damage to trains 4 and 6 at Ras Laffan.
Which, as we covered, is massive.
Yeah, it requires specialized cryogenic heat exchangers that have an 18 to 30-month manufacturing backlog just to get the parts.
Wow. Okay.
Front 2, continue building their already planned mega expansion, which is known as the North Field.
Right.
And Front 3, instantly procure and install multi-billion-dollar integrated air defense systems to harden all of this infrastructure against future missile strikes.
So they have to do all 3 at the same time.
They do, and the bottleneck is human capital and specialized fabrication. Think of it like trying to build 3 record-breaking skyscrapers simultaneously, but there are only 5 architectural and engineering firms on the entire planet qualified to do the specialized cryogenic plumbing.
And Qatar needs all of them at once.
Exactly.
So the reality of project management dictates that something has to give.
Right. They are forced into triage. They repair the existing damage first, they install the military defenses second, and they expand third.
Okay.
And because of this forced sequencing, their crown jewel expansion project, Northfield West, suffers massive delays.
It seeps all the way to 2031, doesn't it?
Yep. Which means Qatar's massive new supply arrives at the exact moment the price hits the 7.54 rock bottom.
Ouch.
And because they were effectively offline or delayed for years, their legacy buyers in Europe and Asia had no choice but to sign new 20-year contracts with early U.S. producers.
So Qatar permanently cedes significant global market share to the United States.
They do.
They lose their dominant market share. And yet, The report explicitly does not list Qatar as a loser.
No, it doesn't. And that's because Qatar possesses an underlying geologic superpower.
Right.
Their gas fields are so massive, they're so easy to access, and they produce so many valuable liquid byproducts alongside the gas that their all-in delivered break-in price is an astonishingly low $3.80 to $3.90 per MMBtu.
That is just structurally unassailable.
It really is.
Like at the absolute nadir of the market crash, when prices are 7.54 and late-stage U.S. projects are canceling cargoes and bleeding cash.
Qatar is still clearing nearly $4 in pure profit margin on every single unit they put on a ship.
That's incredible. So they comfortably survive the trough while higher-cost competitors just drown.
Exactly. It represents a profound shift in the hierarchy of the global energy order.
Which is, I mean, the ultimate irony of the 2026 shock, right? The cure for high prices was high prices.
Yeah, well said.
The initial spike didn't just hurt the buyers financially, it permanently cured them of their addiction to the product. A geopolitical choke point created an overnight price surge. That surge shattered the trust of emerging markets, causing them to completely redesign their national grids and leapfrog straight to renewables. And that massive chunk of demand vanished at the exact moment. A historic wave of new supply was already locked in and under construction. The resulting collision created a brutal price crash that wiped out the latecomers and crowned the early U.S. projects and the renewable energy sector as the victors.
The transition from a profound supply shock to a permanent structural oversupply is the defining economic legacy of the event.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a final thought on how all these dominoes eventually fall back on our own doorsteps. Because of this massive reshuffling, the United States emerges as the dominant global supplier.
Yep. Accounting for roughly 35% of global LNG production by 2030.
Right. Consequently, the U.S. domestic gas benchmark, the Henry Hub stops being just a local metric, and transitions into the primary price setter for the entire world.
Wow.
So think about the interconnectedness of that reality. If you live in the United States, your local utility bills have always been relatively insulated by domestic production.
Right.
But what happens to the cost of heating a home in the Midwest when it becomes permanently shackled to every single geopolitical crisis that happens across the globe?
That's a scary thought.
When a conflict in a strait halfway around the world can immediately dictate the price of your winter heating bill, it is a stark reminder that in the modern energy market, there are no local events anymore.
So true.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the data. Keep questioning the mechanics behind the headlines, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.